Hey, happy Tuesday, Modexus. This is Ellen coming to you from a little different view of my office. I hope you enjoy it. And today we're going to talk about the second claim we can make for Probio balance. Now, just to review, last week we made the first claim, which involves hypercholesteremia. To review, hypercholesteremia is when your LDL cholesterol is high, your HDL cholesterol is low, and your triglycerides could be normal, but the concern is because HDL cholesterol carries an anti-inflammatory protein and LDL carries an inflammatory protein. If your LDL is high, your HDL is low, then the risk factor for inflammation in your cardiovascular system goes up. And we saw last week that the LDL cholesterol can be reduced dramatically, and the likelihood of this apolipoprotein being unbalanced and the inflammation in the cardiovascular system goes down. So this week we want to talk about hyperlipidemia. So hyperlipidemia is when all of your markers for fat metabolism in your body are not in range. So your LDL is high, your HDL is high, your triglycerides are high, you may even have some liver enzymes that are higher than they should be, but altogether it's just a sign that you're not handling fat metabolism very well. Now there is some controversy with higher HDL. Is that offsetting the LDL, because one carrying an anti-inflammatory protein, the other carrying an inflammatory protein? The real concern in this situation is the triglycerides. Triglycerides are not only the building blocks for this apolipoprotein that's inflammatory, they are also a marker for potential prediabetes or diabetes. So somebody that has high triglycerides, we also would check their A1C. If their A1C is high, then they're either pre-diabetic or they might be diabetic depending on the level of the A1C. And it's very important that we get those triglycerides down to lower their A1C and also lower the inflammation in their cardiovascular system. Most people with diabetes do have some form of cardiovascular risk, and people with cardiovascular risk also share a diabetes risk. That's why it's called now metabolic syndrome, and it's a combination of these things. So what do we know about Probio balance and hyperlipidemia? So the claim that we can make is that Probio balance is useful in the treatment of hyperlipidemia. So it's useful in this treatment of high triglycerides, high HDL, high LDL, and possibly impacts the liver enzymes. Why would it do that? First of all, the ashwagandha in the Probio balance will help reduce the inflammation in the cardiovascular system, may have some impact on the insulin sensitivity of your cells, so we may be staving off, or hopefully at least having a positive effect in the direction of prediabetes or the development of diabetes. Or if you're diabetic, it'd be very important for you to take Probio balance along with whatever you're taking. It doesn't interfere with any drug protocols at all. So then it also, we know from last week that it lowers LDL cholesterol and then the triglycerides. So today, this is the marker that I want to talk about that was most surprising. And we don't really understand the total mechanism of action, but the plant stanols have in other clinical trials shown to be effective in actually lowering triglycerides. We believe it's some way through the immune system that this is happening. Nobody really knows for sure, or if it's displacing the triglycerides in a receptor site, but regardless, we still know that it lowers triglycerides. So the really important thing in hyperlipidemia is to get those triglycerides down as low as possible, because that will also lower your LDL cholesterol, because that's the building blocks for the LDL cholesterol, and then it lowers this risk of diabetes. So case study, once again, this is someone who's been on Probio balance for a year. First 6 months was one capsule. Rechecked all the lipid metabolism, still wasn't satisfied. Doctor wanted to put her on a couple of statin drugs and maybe metformin for the diabetes risk, and she said, no, I'm going to go on 2 Probio balance. So she's been on 2 Probio balance now for 6 months, and her results they're just amazing, really. So the LDL cholesterol did come down, maybe not quite as dramatically as mine did. Her LDL cholesterol came down about 27%, which is still a nice adjustment in the LDL cholesterol. The most important thing was the triglycerides, which dropped a stunning 48%. Now, once again, I cannot guarantee this in everybody, but in this particular individual, she did make some slight dietary changes, not too many, but to have those triglycerides come down and then recheck the A1C, and the A1C is now normal, which means that her risk of diabetes is it's under control. There's still other things she needs to do to make sure that diabetes doesn't happen, and that's dietary factors, exercise, and so on. But at least now we're in controllable ranges. So this is really, really exciting to me, because I know that there's so many people who have cardiovascular, like they see comorbidities, and that's like diabetes and heart disease and maybe an autoimmune disease at the same time. And now we know that Probio Balance has proven its claim that it will actually modulate the cholesterol levels in hyperlipidemia. It does modulate the triglycerides, which is the most important. So if you're somebody that's on this and you're just having these tests done and your LDL cholesterol hasn't really modulated that much, that's not the only marker that you need to look at. You need to look at the triglycerides. You need to look at what's called CRP, or C-reactive protein. And if those markers are coming down and your A1C is coming down, your risk factors for cardiovascular disease are being reduced dramatically. So this is the result that I wanted to share with you today. It is fabulous. Very happy with it. She's staying on her 2 Probio Balance. Doesn't want to go on any drugs, so she's staying on her 2 Probio Balance every day. She takes them both in the evening with her meals. And so next time we'll talk about another claim that we can make. But claim number 2, Probio Balance is useful in the treatment of hyperlipidemia. So that's different than cholesteremia, hypercholesteremia. It is something different. And there are 2 separate claims for that. The challenge with these situations is this has nothing to do with your body weight, although we would expect to find hyperlipidemia in somebody who's obese, but we can also find hyperlipidemia in somebody who looks slim and trim. That could be genetics, it could be their liver, it could be other factors, it could be the fact that they're a smoker. So there are other factors involved, but hyperlipidemia is not just associated with obesity, just like hypercholesteremia is not just associated with obesity. So these are factors that can occur in people that we would look at and say, oh, just looking at them, they look reasonably healthy. That's why we have to do blood tests. That's why we have to get these markers, and then we can manage from there. Anyway, this is a little longer than I wanted it to be. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you soon about claim number 3. Bye for now.